I'm giving it as my function. Take the first variable, which is integer x. So next what happens, I have a float. But what happens here is I want the name to be same for the float also. I want even it to be my function. And I'll give it as float x. And what happens next? I have another integer wherein I want something called as double. And I want the double to be also my function. And I'll be declaring something like double x double y. So this is known as your function overloading. So what I told you, I have the same name. So the same name is my function, wherein I'm taking the name as my function for both integer, float and double. But the arguments or the data types are different, wherein I'm having different data types, that is int, float and double. Just notice here, I gave int my function as, so the example here was int x. In float it is float x. But what happens in double, I'm giving double x and double y. I'll just let you know moving ahead why I have given this double x and double y. But keep it in mind here, wherein I have given the double with two variables. Okay. So please make a note of all these things. We'll move with an example quickly. So this is known as function overloading. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So nextly, let's move with a function. So how do I write a function? So first, I'm giving int. It's not void. So what does it mean? What does it mean? So if I give void plus function, I'm taking this as function int. So int plus function integer. So what does integer refer here? I'm not using void, but I'm using int. So what does void tell and what does int tell? Forgot. So there was something known as written value, right? So if I give void, what happens? Can I have the written value? When can I have a written value? When I have void or when I have int? So void doesn't support written value. If I replace this by void here, then it doesn't support written value. If I have something called integer or float and any other variable, it will be supporting the written value. So when I'm giving plus in function, what is my written value? So I want to return x plus y. Make sense? This much is clear, right? So next what I told was, I'm having a same name, but I'm having different argument. So nextly what I'll do, I'll use something called as double. So what I do, again, I use the name plus function and I replace it back. So again, I should pass the argument, that is double x and double y. And what do I want to return? Again, I want to return x plus y. This is the, what is this called? I had told I'll be having two parts in my function. What is that? Declaration and the main function. So firstly, I'm declaring the variables what all I want, and secondly, I'll be moving to the main function. So here I'll be having int main. So does this give an output for me? Just look at the program. Will this pose an error or give an output? This will pose an error because I have started with int main already here, which shouldn't be there. And after this, I should be calling the function, and later I'll be using int b. So here what happens? The calling of the function happens. The calling of the function. So how do I call a function? So I'll be taking, what do I want here? So I want two numbers. I have given int x and int y, double x and double y. So what are x and y? I need to call those parameters over here. So I'll be giving it as my number 1. So the first number is equal to, I'll be taking a plus function int. I'll be calling this. And what should I pass over here? The two value of x and y. Okay. So next what do I have? I have again the double. So again double, I'll be taking the second number, that is my number 2, and here I'll be having plus function double, and if it is double then what am I supposed to give? So it was an integer and I gave 8 and 5. If it is a double, what am I supposed to give? Is it an integer number, decimal value, or what? So double is basically a float number. So I'm supposed to give a float number over here. Let me take an example. I'm having 5.9 and 9.5 respectively. Okay. So next what I'll do, obviously I want to take out the result. So I give it as cout. So my output will be something called int, wherein what am I supposed to display over here? I want the output that is here. The first one is, instead of sum, I have taken my number 1 and 2. So firstly, I want to display my number and I want to get it in a new line, which is very common. And nextly, again, so I'll take it as double. And what am I supposed to display here? It is my number 2. Right? Any doubts still here? And I want to, lastly, what should I not forget is written 0. Understood this much? Very simple. I'm calling, in the previous sections what we were doing, we were taking only one number and calling one function. So in overloading, basically what happens is, here I'm having plus function and plus function with the same name but for different variables. Understood? So in calling a function, obviously I should declare, when I'm taking two numbers, I should declare both the numbers and I'm trying to print the output. This much is clear? Any doubts in this program? How, when, what came?
No doubts, ma'am.
So error. So what is the error? Written was not declared in the scope. So what do you mean by that? Okay. Haven't I closed it with the double quotes? I have closed it. So what's my error? Unqualified ID before written. So what is that unqualified ID? Have I used including namespace? Yes. Plus function in text. So double plus function double x and double y replace plus 1. Oh, I have two written over here. I already have a written. Okay. So I got the output wherein firstly 8 plus 5 is 13 and double 5 plus 9 and 9 plus 5 is, oh, is it right? Yes, it is right. So this is my output. So basically function overloading is just remember this thing wherein you have the same name but different type of argument. Can you quickly run this program and get the output? Instead of double, use floats or try it up with string. So if you are using string, then what are you supposed to add in the main function? Include string. Quickly do that and paste. So if you want, you can see this. Any doubts in this? So moving ahead, things will become complex. So if you have any doubts, you can clear it out here only. And remember this why double is given. I'll explain you. Done? If you have any confusion, you can ask me. Don't just like you're done with the class and don't just live it there only. So these things usually evaporate when you don't practice. So please have some online compiler, get some examples from internet, or if you have it in your textbook as a part of the syllabus, please go through all those steps and practice it daily so that coding becomes easy. So if you study this right now and open it after 1 week, everything will be over the head. You can't understand what is what. Finish? Shall we move? Anyone did the coding? So I want you people to tell something else, like how do I get to know what is going on there? Okay. Hoping that you don't have any doubts still here. Let's move on. So nextly, there are certain rules while doing the function overloading. So rules of functions overloading. So what are those rules? So the first rule says the function have different parameter type. So what do you mean by this parameter over here? So for example, so in this condition what happened? I was having the same name, but the variables were different. That is what. So I had integer over here, I had double over here. So that wasn't confusing for the compiler to run the program wherein I had different stuffs. So what if I want integer here and as well as integer here? So if I give, for example, integer plus function, integer is x and y, and I have double and I have plus function again integer x and y. And both the return types are x plus y. And here number 1 and 2 I'll be passing 8 and 5 and something like 5 and 9. Did you understand the scenario? So I'm having the same integer over here, but so let me take it as 5 comma 9. So both the type are integer and even this is an integer, even this is an integer, and even this is an integer. So is there any difference between 1 and 2? That is the first function what I'm calling and the second function what I'm calling. No. So both are same. So it's something like I'm having two Aishwaryas in the class, but both have the same initial. That is Aishwarya P and Aishwarya P. So when I don't know their faces, how do I recognize both the Aishwarya? So the compiler doesn't know. So I'm giving the function x and y. But what happens to the compiler? The compiler doesn't know whether it is the first one to execute or the second one to execute. In that case, what happens? You'll be getting an error. Okay. So you'll be getting an error. So what will be the error? There is an ambiguity in execution. So what do you mean by ambiguity? Ambiguity is nothing but confusions. Okay. So let me show. So I have plus function where this is also an integer, this is also an integer, int x, y, and I'm calling both the plus functions. So unterminated comment. The function have different parameter type. So it's an error.
In int my num2, the function name is different one, like you have missed C.
Yes, I have missed.
C plus function in
Oh,
what? Int main one.
oh, I didn't get you. In int main, yes.
Int main, int my num2 equals to
Hmm.
plus function, you have missed C there, ma'am, in between. While writing function name.
So I'm getting an error again. So this is what the rule says. The function have different parameter type. That is, when you're having two functions of different parameter, so here I'm having both the written value x. What am I supposed to do is, for example, I'm taking sum. Then what I should do is, I have int a, comma, int b in first function. And if I want the same thing to be done in the second function also, then I'm not supposed to take two parameter. I'm supposed to take three parameter. So this is your rule number one. The function have a different parameter type, wherein if you have the same function, then what am I supposed to do here? I want something like in set, and I should pass another value here. Let me take it as 16. And I should type that this will work. Understood? So there should be no ambiguity between the compiler while running the program. So that is your rule number one in function overloading, where the function have different parameter. So this is your rule number one. And nextly, your rule number two says, sorry, this is not having two what different parameter type. So it is having different number of parameters. So the number of parameters are different. So next one is these functions have different parameter type. So what do you mean by different type? So here it was different number of parameter, here wherein here I have 2 and here I have 3. So different parameter is something what we saw, that was, so let me take an example. I have some int a, comma int b. Nextly what I'll be having, I'll be using something like double, comma. So here, so what we are trying to do here is, we are not trying to confuse the compiler. So we are giving a clarity to the compiler that both the things are different. So in first place, what is the clarity I'm giving? In the function number one, I'm having only two parameters. And in function number two, I'm having three parameters. So here I'm having two parameter, but it is a different type, that is type integer. But here I'm having two parameter, but the type is double. Is this clear? So firstly, while having the rules, first one is you should have either different number of parameter or you should have different type of parameter. This is clear, right? Any doubts here?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So the last rule what we have is we should,
Ma'am,
yes,
ma'am, but we have the same argument now, ma'am.
where?
In these functions have different parameter type. We have same number of parameters and the type is also same now, ma'am.
Type is double over here, sorry.
Function of type.
So it's double and even here it's double. So the type is double and here it is here we are using integer. Here we are using double. But here it is integer, but we are having different number of parameters. Here we are having two variables, and here we are having three variables. Here the parameter is of type integer. Here it's parameter of type double. We saw an example for the first one, right? The first function wherein we run the program. That was the example of the second one. Clear? Or you still have
Yes.
doubt? Clear, right? Either the number should be different or the type should be different. Clear or not?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. And I have the third condition wherein these functions have different sequence of parameter. So what do you mean by sequence? In general English terms, what do you mean by sequence? So sequence means, can I tell it is a pattern? So if I have alphabets, then the sequence is A to Z. If I have numbers, then the sequence is 1 to 10. So here I'm telling that I'm having different type of sequence. Let me take an example wherein my first sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And my second sequence is 1, 2, 4, 3. So is this the same sequence or a different sequence? Or to be more precise or clear, let me take it as 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So here my first sequence is in ascending order and my second sequence is in descending order. Right? So I'm having different sequence. So I can call this as sequence 1 and I can call this as sequence 2. Is this much clear? So firstly, know what is difference in sequence. So nextly, so I have different sequence of parameter. Let me apply this. So let me take the same example wherein I have a sum and firstly I want integer A. The first number I want it to be an integer and the second number I want it to be a double. So here the sequence is first I'm having an integer and secondly I'm having a double. So what does the rule say? It should have different sequence of parameter. So in second one, by default, what should happen? So if in case I want the program to work well, I want to change the sequence. So I'll be taking double as A and integer as B. And this will be termed as your sequence 1 and this will be termed as your sequence 2. Is this clear? So thirdly, what the third rule says is I should have different sequence of parameter wherein I'll change the parameter is same. What is that? I want the sum. The output is same. But in order to avoid the confusion, what am I doing? Firstly, I'm taking integer as A and double as B. That will be my sequence 1. And in second condition, what am I doing? I'm changing the sequence. That is the double, I'm shifting it to A and the integer, I'm shifting it to B. So this gives me a different sequence of parameter wherein the overloading will work. So in first condition we saw if it is int A and again if it is here int A and int A, it will be a error. Why? Because there will be an ambiguity for the compiler to function what after what. So it doesn't know if there are both two Aishwaryas, it doesn't know. It is like having twins, identical, non-identical twins. Non-identical twins ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಗುರ್ತಿಡಿಯಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಆ ತರ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. So you never know who is A and who is B. ನಿಮ್ಗೇನೆ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ದ ಟ್ವಿನ್ಸ್, ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಟ್ವಿನ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ if they are looking same, ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ you'll be having a confusion who is who. You never know. ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಏನೋ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಬಿ ಬರ್ತಾರಾ, ಬಿನ ಕರೆದ್ರೆ ಎ ಬರ್ತಾರಾ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. In the same way, while execute the program, if you have the same things in the program, the compiler will be confused what to execute. When the compiler is confused what to execute, then what happens? There will be a error. So this happens in most of the compiler. If you have heard of SQL andre gotta? Have you heard of SQL, Oracle? Have people heard of these things? These things are the
Yes, ma'am.
yes. These we use for data handling. And this confusion with the compiler, what I told, are very common in SQL and Oracle, wherein if the compiler doesn't know what to execute and if the codings are not clear, there will be no output which is executed. There will be an error which is termed as ambiguity to the compiler. So this happens even in C++ in the overloading function. So you should keep in mind the three major rules of the overloading. The first one is either the number of parameters should be different, so that the compiler gets to know I have two parameters here and I'm having three parameters here. So it is very clear. One is having two, one is having three. So the compiler has no problem and the execution happens. And the second rule is either it have different type of parameters. So in first condition I'm having integer and the second condition I'm having double. So it's very clear that the integer is separate and the double is separate. So I can have the output has required. And the third condition is where I have the change in sequence, that is different sequence of parameter. So I have assigned integer to A and double to B. And in second condition, what I do, I assign double to A and B to integer. So here also there will be no confusion because in one sequence I'm having A after B and in the next sequence I'm having the reciprocal of that is B after A. Hence, what happens in all the three conditions, your compiler will not be having any problem with the execution and the program will be executed. With having, don't forget this, same name with different type of argument. So how do you give the different type of argument? Using the rules of the overloading function. Clear? Don't get confused here. You need to remember each and every point because you'll be having another overloading that is known as I told you before, it is a operator overloading and that will be even more confusing. So be clear with what you are listening here and don't forget it. Make a note of all these things.
Ma'am,
Yes.
now what if we use double and float? Does it consider double and float as same or different itself, ma'am?
Basically, I'll explain you one more concept. Don't copy, just listen. So when you have float, so what is the major difference between float and double? First, so how does a float differ from double?
Both hold same data value, ma'am. But double is
What is double? I explained you in the very first class, right? So what is the number of bits that double hold and what is the number of bits that float hold? That's the difference, right, between double and float.
32 and 64 bits, ma'am.
Exactly. So it will be holding 32 bits, but what happens in double? It will be holding 64 bits. Double is nothing but the double of the float, right? So it will be holding 64 bits. Basically, what happens in your programming languages is when you're feeding the number, for example, I'm feeding something called as 6.8 to the compiler. I'm feeding 6.8 and for example, let us assume, let me not take 6.8 or something called, so I have this number. I'm feeding this number to the compiler using the value float. Okay. I'm not giving it as double, I'm giving it as float. But let me assume this number that is 6875.6743, 32-bit is not sufficient to hold this number. So what the compiler does by default, will be stored as double because I'm requiring more than 32 bits over here. So I have a number which is XYZ. I'm feeding that number by giving it as type float. But what is happening over here? I have a float, I have 32 bits in the float, but the number XYZ which I'm giving, 32 bits is not sufficient to hold that number. So basically what happens, the compiler converts the float value into double. And this is known as type conversion. Okay. So in type conversion, you'll be having basically two types. Just listen to this. I'll give you time to copy afterwards. First, understand the topic and later we can deal with anything. So firstly, I'll be having implicit. The first one will be the implicit type conversion and the second one will be my explicit type conversion. Okay. So what does the word this implicit and explicit mean? So implicit basically means by itself. So implicit means by itself. Explicit means I have to apply external force on it. So it's something like implicit means you're eating your food on your own. Explicit means someone like your mother or father is making you to eat your food. That's very simple. Remember in that way. So in implicit, what is happening? You're eating your food on your own. So that is what compiler is trying to do over here. This is your implicit conversion, wherein if the number of bits is not sufficient to hold the number or the data what you are giving, what does the compiler do? By default, it will change the data type into double. And we have a sequence for that. So firstly, I'll be having bool. So if not, I'll be going with character. So what is bool value hold? It is either 0 or 1. Later, I'll be having character. Next, I'll be having short integer. And later, I'll be having integer. And after that, I'll be having unsigned integer. And after that, I'll be having long. After that, I'll be having float. After that, finally, I'll be having double. And even after that, I'll be having long doubles. So this is the pattern what it follows. So if I have bool that is 0 and 1, but I don't have sufficient space, it will move to, it will be converting itself to character. Later it will be converting itself to short integer, then integer, unsigned integer, long integer, float, double and long double. Your assignment for tomorrow is, I want you people to know the difference between this short integer, what is this long integer, what is this long double. So I think everyone will be having smartphones and Google for sure. So just figure out what is the difference between all these terms. Okay. So this is the first type of type conversion, wherein you have an implicit type conversion where the system does everything for itself and it doesn't bother. Okay. So I told you the second one is your explicit type conversion. Maybe you have seen such stuffs. Oh, let me give you a simple example over here. So I have int me. So I have an integer a that is equals to 10, I'm assuming. And later I have a character b which is equal to a. And I'm giving again, I want a, but I want a to be b plus a. Okay. Then I'm having another, this thing has C, wherein I give it as a plus 1.0. Why am I giving 1.0? Because it's a float. And nextly, I'm giving Cout. So what all do I want? I want A, B, and C. So I'll have, let me take, I want the value to be printed. So it is A first, and a new line. Okay. In the same way, I want to print B. In the same way, I want to print C. Let's go to your compiler and see what is the output for this. Quickly, add this program, complete this. So I want it to be like this. So B, and I want the value of B. Again, I want a new line. Again, I want the value of C. I'll be taking the value of C. Again, a new. So quickly go to your compiler and run this program. So include your IO stream and namespace std and all, and later take int. So where you have the value of a is 10 and you are taking the character b, and a becomes b plus a. I want the output of a here, and later I'll be getting what is the output here, that is b. And finally, I'll be getting the output of c. So what is the output? So what is A, what is B, what is C? Make it quick, guys. We don't have much time.
One A, one mom.
Huh? A's?
A is 1,
Okay.
B is A,
Okay.
C is 1 mom.
C is 1. Didn't you put double quotes over here? For character?
It's in character type mom.
Did you put the quotes?
Yes mom.
Yes. Okay. What is the, do you know about ASCII values?
Yes mom.
Yeah. What is the ASCII value of 1?
49.
Value of A, that is your small a, not big A. So your ASCII value of A is 97. So basically what happens here is your A is 10 and you're giving B is equal to A. So your B becomes 97 and A is B plus A. So your output for A will be 107. Because your ASCII value is A, that is 97, you have 10 over here. 97 plus 10 again will be your 107. Your B will be equal to A, that is correct. And again what happens? You are adding 1.0 to 107 and your C will be 108. I'll give you time, just make a note of it and later run your program. I'll just finish explaining over here. So what happens here is in this implicit conversion, basically I'm having a float number, but in order to say that it will be converted into double by on its own. Okay, so this is the first type of conversion wherein I have implicit conversion where the conversion happens by itself following this particular pattern, and you have an example. So explicit conversion, I think you have done this in your C and C++ classes. So for example, I have something called, so firstly, let me take in green, and you have a double number x which is equal to 1.876, something like that. And you have an int, and what is the function I want to do here is add. So what is my x? What is my x? The value of x, that is double. What is the value of x here? It is 1.876, right? So what I'm doing, I'm having a number that is int, that is add or sum, whatever it may be. What am I trying to do? Irrespective of whatever the x may be, I don't want anything. Like I don't want whether the x is float, double, or an integer, or whatever it might be. What I want to do, I want to convert it into integer and add one to it. That's my job. I'm not concerned about what x is always. So it may be a float number, it may be a character, or whatever, or it may be an integer itself. But I'm not concerned about that. So what I do, what I all want is I want x to be an integer because add is an integer here. So what I do, I convert it into x by giving this syntax and add 1 to it. So it becomes 1 plus 1 and your output will be 2. So here, irrespective of whatever it may be, I am doing the changes wherein I want it to be converted. So this is known as your explicit conversion, wherein you yourself convert a particular data type into another data type. If a system does it for you, then it is known as implicit conversion. Understood? Clear with the conversions? So that's the reason we use double over here instead of float. There is nothing wrong in using float, but we prefer using double because of these conditions. What happens? Clear with this? Or you have any doubts? Any confusion?
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay. Like you want to take down this, right? Just take it out from here. I'll scroll it down. People who aren't interacting also please make a note of it because you don't get it easily anywhere on your Google. Just tell me once you're done with this, I'll scroll it down. And if you're like, if this explanation is not sufficient, write it in such a way that you understand when you open your book even now after a week or 3 4 days. Write it in such a way that you understand. Done? Shall I scroll it down?
Scroll it, ma'am.
try running this program of implicit type conversion when you're free. And also try to figure out what are all these unsigned, long double, short int, long. What are all these data?
Scroll down, ma'am.
Yes. Done?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So our next topic is with respect to function overloading only. Like we are telling that okay, we need to defer the parameters, or we are telling having three rules wherein you have to have different parameter type or a different number of parameter or the sequence of parameter. All these function I'm telling you. So you need to do all these steps with respect to overloading. But the major question is why? So why do I need this all overloading functions, or what are the causes of this what made me use these overloading functions? So there are three major things wherein I need to use overloading functions. So I can say it has the need or causes of overloading functions. So I'm going a bit in detail with respect to these topics. Maybe I have no clue whether you have all these things in your what syllabus or not, but it will be useful for you while writing your program or when you learn Java or other type of programming languages. So I'm taking a bit of much time on these overloading concepts and going a bit deeper. Okay. So in this causes of need or overloading, the first one will be your type conversion. Okay. The second one will be your default argument. And the third one will be your function with pass by reference. So what you'll be mainly doing when you have pass by reference, you'll be using the address. That much you know, right? So you know what is type conversion. So you know what is default argument in function. So what is default argument? So if in case I don't have any, I have called a function and I don't have any argument to pass. What if you remember? I had given a default number that is absent if in case they are absent for the test in the previous class, absent, and in default with the name it will be coming as absent, and the default marks would have been 0 for people who aren't present for the test. So that is your default argument. And function with pass by references, you'll be having a function wherein you'll not be calling it with respect to the value that is either 2, 3 or 4 by using ampersand, that is and symbol, you'll be referring to the address. I think you people remember this much, right? So let me show you a few examples of this so that you have a better understanding. Is this visible for you? Is the screen visible for you people?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the first one is type conversion. So just look into the example. I'll be sharing this file later with ma'am. You can have the access for that. So you need not to take a note, make a note of all these stuff. Just see and understand. I'll be sharing the file. So firstly, what am I doing? I'm using a integer, a float, a integer, and a float x. Then I'm trying to print the value of x. Then I'm calling a function wherein I'm taking integer y. Okay. So coming here, I'm passing two values. That is 3.4 for the float, and for integer, I'm having the value 34. So basically what am I doing? I'm taking a float, int, and again I'm taking a float x value. Remember this. I'm having two float. When I have a x value for float, but I don't have any values over here, and I'm having an integer value. I'm trying to print out x, and later I'm having void function has integer y, and I'm trying to print y, and I'm passing 3.4 and 34. So basically what is happening over here, I'm having a float x value, a int y value, and I'm trying to print it out. So firstly, when I have void, the first thing you need to notice while writing function is whether it is returnable or non-returnable. So when you are having void, it is non-returnable, right? So what should happen over here according to you? So I'm having a function 3.4 that should be called to get the output 3.4, and having an integer 34 that should be called to get the value 34. But if you run this function, what happened is you'll be having a error. Reference to function is ambiguous, that is function 3.4. So this will be the error what you get. So what is the error? There is an ambiguity with respect to reference to the function. So what is that function over here? 3.4. So why it is happening is because, as I told you before, we can't use float over here. So how this error can be modified? By using double, we can modify this error. So ambiguity is with respect to type conversion, wherein I can't use the float value. Why? Because the floating point constants are not treated as floats. So these constants what I have are not treated as floats, but they are treated as double by default. So what I need to do, I need to replace this float by double in order to get the output, so that the ambiguity for the compiler is removed, and I'll be getting the required output when I replace this 3.4 as a double instead of float. That is the type conversion what I need to do. So this is one of the major errors where you're getting function overloading. Understood? Okay. So next we'll move to the next type, that is function with default argument. So we had a default argument, right? So what is this default argument? So basically, let's try to first know the flow of the program. I'm having an integer, void function integer. Again, I'm having void function integer and integer. Again, I'm calling a void function which is an integer. Okay. Fine. Okay. I'm calling three function which is that I'm declaring three function which is an integer, and later I want to print that function int y, and here I have given a int y function and a int z function which is equal to 12. So what am I trying to do? I am trying to call a function wherein integer x is termed as integer y, and I want a integer z which is by default 12. Okay, so and later what am I doing? I'm calling this function and giving it a value 12. So here again I'm calling and I'm giving it a value 12. But here before that I'm calling an integer z and giving it a value 12. So basically what am I doing in this function? I'm giving the value twice for different variables wherein, so it is something like I have two people. Whom do I have? Okay, I'm having Inchara and Varshini. So I'm having Inchara and Varshini. I want you people to tell something to your mom. So Harshita ma'am is telling to your mom. But what am I doing? I'm telling information XYZ with Inchara and information ABC with Varshini. So basically what is happening over here, you'll go to your mom and both are conveying different messages. Now mom is confused what to do and what not to do. The same thing happens over here. Firstly, I'm giving Z where I'm passing a different value, and here I'm calling a function again and I'm passing a different value. So what happened? The reference to function is an ambiguous, that is 12. Why? Because I have already given message that is Z is equal to 12 before only. Again, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to call the function again with the same thing. So now your mom is confused what Harshita mom has told. Okay, whether she has given the information ABC or whether she has given the information XYZ. So this confusion leads to ambiguity and your program will not be having any output. Understood this? This is the second condition wherein you have the ambiguity. And the third condition with function with pass by reference. So you know what is pass by reference? That is, you are using the address of the particular function instead of using the value of the particular function. So what happens here? In first condition, you are trying to show the address by giving the integer address. So you are trying to access something. So here what you are trying to access? So with the name of the address, that is number, for example, it is door number 1. If you remember the box which I had put, I had 6 boxes with number 1 to 6, and I had A and I had B going through it. So those were the value within those register. So here what am I trying to do? I'm trying to access both. So firstly, I'm trying to access the address also, and secondly, I'm trying to access the value also. So here I'm trying to access both the values wherein the system gets confused, and again it will give an error. The reference to function is ambiguous. Why? Because I'm trying to access both the conditions. Understood? Any doubt with respect to this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So these are the 3 conditions wherein you get the error and you need to be careful about it. Okay. So next, what are the advantages of the overloading function? So it is very simple. It becomes simple and easier to understand, and it saves memory, maintain consistency, make clear for methods regarding the parameter type and reliability of the program. So this second point refers to what I told you here. Compiler. Okay. So I'm making clear whether it is what? Different type of parameter, number or anything without giving any ambiguity to the system. And thirdly, using function overloading concept, we can develop more than one function with the same name, but argument path should be of different types. So as I told, using the same name, you can have different types. Function overloading executes the program faster. So this is the main reason why we use overloading of the operator or overloading of the function. So what happens is basically your overloading makes your function execution faster and is used for code reusability and save memory. So you know what is code reusability? Basically functions are used for code reusability. As I mentioned you in the first class, so I'm having a 600 lines code wherein I need to write a 10 line after every 100 line. So what I do, instead of writing after each and every 100 line, I write it on the top priority wherein it can be used whenever I want. So those are the advantages of the overloading function. And secondly, as you know, when we have advantages, we'll be also having some disadvantages. So the disadvantages are function declaration that differ by their return type cannot be overloaded with function overloading progress. So I told you. So return type, if they differ by the written type, if they are different. So as I mentioned you here, okay, if the written type is different, that is x and y are different, and I have a different functions over here. Where is that? 3. So I have the same thing or the different thing over here. The sequence is same or something like that. So written type doesn't support it. And also, if any static member function is declared, then some parameter of different length cannot be overloaded. So example I showed you here. So I have the same thing, that is 12 and 12 over here, wherein overloading cannot be done. So I have the 12 here and also a 12 here. So in this type of declaration, I can't have overloading function. So these are the advantages and the disadvantages and the different type of overloading function which I need to use. So this is with respect to overloading. If you have any doubts with respect to overloading, feel free to ask me, else we can move with the next topics. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nothing comes without practice. So I want you people to like practice it, all the functions, like whatever it is told here. So I told you the output will be 2 over here. So once you go home or you have some time to learn, then I want you people to just go through it. Is this clear? Shall we move to the next topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So moving ahead, I would say one thing, things becomes complex. So try to remember and understand things. Okay. So next we'll be moving with, yes. Okay. So have you heard this word OOP? What is this OOP? I'm sure you have heard of this. So have you heard of something called object oriented programming? Have you heard of this? Okay. So let me explain what is this OOP. So basically, if you remember, I had told you in the first class, C++ is object-oriented programming language. So what is this object-oriented programming language? So basically, when we use functions and operators, when we use functions and operators in order to write the program, okay? So functions and operators we are using. Where do we use these functions and operators? On the data set. So we are having the data set. On that data set, we are performing certain functions and operators by creating these functions and operators. So what are we basically doing here? So creating objects that contain both functions and operators. So we saw about functions. We'll be seeing stuff like classes, methods, moving ahead. So just remember this. Firstly, C++ was famous than C because it was an object-oriented program. So we will be having certain stuffs called methods, objects, arguments, etc. in the coming classes. You'll understand it better right now. But right now, to learn what is OOP, that is object oriented program, remember this. So we have a data set, and we are processing that data set using certain functions and operators. So what are we doing here? We are trying to create an object that contains both data and functions using certain methods. And these stuffs will come under object-oriented program. So you may ask me, why do we need all these object-oriented program? What is the need of object-oriented program? So as we learned before, we had different types of loops, we had different types of data types, we had all different type of statement if else and while loop, do while loop. And wasn't it sufficient to write the program, or wasn't it enough? Because it was simple, right? So using if else statement, things would be very simple. So when you see an example of function overloading or function, you can tell me adding xy can be done by adding or multiplying two numbers or adding two numbers. So this can be done by using simple if else loop also, or by writing a simple program. Why should we make these programs so complex? So initially at this stage you feel this as complex. So what is the, when compared to the different things what we used before, this is bit complex, right? So returning a value, calling a function, what is the need of doing all these when we can do things in a simpler way? So this would be a question that would pop up. So what are those reasons is, firstly, it is faster and easier to execute. So I told you, so functions we use for the reusability of the code. So execution becomes faster and it is easier to execute. And they provide a clear structure of the program. So here, if you can notice, anyone can read this, right? So if it is written by me also, even you people can easily understand this. Okay, it is a function, it's having integer x, y, and I'm calling it here. And it is pretty simple for people to understand that what is written. So it is a clear structure of programming when compared to other. Okay, and also it helps C++ code dry. Dry means don't repeat yourself and make the code easier to maintain, modify, and debug. So basically, when we use functions, we told this. So we need not to reuse the code. So it is for reusing, and we need not to repeat the code for every 100 lines of the code. So there is no need for you to repeat the code, and it makes your code easier and to maintain, modify, and debug. Okay. So it can also provide a reusable application with less code and shorter development time. So obviously, when we are reducing the number of lines of the code and reusing it, it becomes a less code with a shorter development time, because we aren't wasting our time by reusing the code or making more number of code, and it becomes easy for us for the development. So in development purpose, what we do, we use this oops. Understood what is the need of these programs. And next topic what we would come up with is, I told you, so we have all these methods, object classes and all. So first thing, remember the hierarchy. The main hierarchy is your class. The first thing what should come into your mind when you are writing an object oriented program is creating a class. So when you have created a class, basically you'll be having objects within the class. Okay. So firstly, in your object-oriented programming, you'll be creating a class. So when you create a class, within the class, you'll be having a object. So let me take an example. How many of you, like, what do you like? Let me take an example of cars. Okay. I have created an object, a class car. So what are the objects within this is, for example, I'll be having something like BMW. on Honda. Okay. So if the class is car, then the objects within the class will be BMW, Audi, and Honda City. Okay. So basically, a object is a instance of class. That is, it's a part of a class. Understood this much? So why do we need object-oriented programming? What are all the things that come under object-oriented programming? So the first basic thing that come under your object-oriented programming is your class. So within the class, you'll be having objects. Okay, we can say something has subset. So if you know sets and subset in your mathematics, so object is a subset of a class, I can say. So what is BMW? It's a car. What is Audi? It's a car. What is Honda City? It's a car. So everything will be coming under cars only. So basically object is a instance of a class, and one more major thing what you need to remember here is your objects will be inheriting. The objects will be inheriting all the properties of your class. So two major things you need to remember is, so one is class, and later we'll be having objects within the class, and your object is your instance of a class, and it will be inheriting all the properties of the class. Okay, so you'll understand better as we move ahead. For time being, know this much. Okay, any doubts in this?
No doubt, sir.
No. Okay, make a note of this now quickly. Yeah. Finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next, after objects, we'll be having something called attributes and methods. So let's not like complicate things going into program, that we'll do later. Let's try to understand the basic things. So let me take an example of car again. So here, car is my object. So my class is something else, maybe automobile or something like that. Within that, I'm having an object which is car. Now this car will be having two things, that is my attributes and my methods. So if I have to tell attributes of the car, it will be something like, so the color of the car, or what I can, weight of the car, or speed of the car. So these things are known as the attributes of the car. Okay. So nextly, if I come to methods, for example, when you are driving the car, you'll be having two things. So you'll either drive a car or you may apply brakes. So how you do it is the method. So attributes give me the specifications and how it is done will be given by the methods. Okay, understood this much? So you need to remember two things in classes or objects. The first thing is the attributes and the second thing is the methods. In attributes, basically what happens is we'll be defining the terms like the color, weight, height, speed or something like that. In methods, you'll be having things like how to do it. Okay. So what are these attributes and methods? Basically 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 here refers to attributes and methods. These are variables. Variables. These are variables and functions itself. And they belong to the class. Okay, when they belong to the class, so let me take an example. You are a 4th sem students and you belong to 4th sem. What are you people called? You are called members of the class. It might be a bit confusing here because you need to remember so many things, but as and when we write the programs, you'll understand it better. Okay, is this much clear? Class, objects, attributes, and methods. So these are nothing but your variables and function which belong to the class, and these are called as member of class. Clear with these things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please make a note of it quickly. Done?
Completed, ma'am.
Okay. So next, before moving to writing writing the programs, I want you people to know one more topic, and that is access specifiers. Have you heard of this word access specifiers? No. Have you heard of this? What are access specifiers? Anywhere?
Yes, ma'am.
So what are those?
Private, public, protected.
So why do we use those access specifiers?
Like while initializing some functions and variables, we need some privacy regarding them, ma'am. So we use these classes.
Okay. So let me take an example. For example, I have something called what? So I have a bit of information with respect to management level in your college, that is NIIT. And do you think that bit of information? So if we come from the hierarchy, that is principal, the faculty, and the students. do you think all the information will be having access to all the hierarchy of the people? So will information A or B or C, will people like principal or your teachers or your students, will all three set of people will have the access to the bit of information? No, because of privacy concerns. So there will be some kind of information which can be accessed by all three set of people, some kind of information which can be accessed by only two sets of people, or some kind of information which is very crucial which will be accessed by only one set of people. So that is the reason we use access specifiers with respect to the privacy concerns. Okay. So here basically I'm having three access specifier, that is public, private, and the third one is protected. So I'm having three types of access specifiers, that are public, private, and protected. So what does public means? Means members cannot access from outside the class. So if something is outside the class, then I'm not supposed to access it. Okay. So what, okay, let me make it simple. What do you mean by public? So what is the difference between public and private? So this would be a very good example to give on. So I'm pretty sure you people use Instagram, right? So there you have an option to make it as a public account and to make it as a private account. So what happens if it is a public account? Anyone can access your account and see whatever you have posted or something like that. So what happens if in case it is your private account, you'll be having a, what can I call that request? What is that request called? Some request. So what is that request called, people? Follow.
Access request.
No, I'm talking about Instagram, not about C++. So there will be an option called follow request, wherein you can request the particular person to give access whether he can see your profile or not, right? So once you accept the request that you are allowing them to access your profile, then only they will be able to see your profile, right? This you understood, right? This you know much better than me, I could say. So with respect to public, what happens? Accessible from outside the class. So anyone from outside who you haven't given the access can access the information. With respect to private, what happens? Members cannot be accessed from outside the class. So only for whom you give the permission to access, they can access. Okay. So this is clear. So in public, everyone can access. In private, only authorized people can access. So then what is this protected? So protected, you can see in inherited classes. So when it comes to protected, this name, that is inherited class, should pop up in your mind. Okay. So basically, do you know what is inherited classes? Do people know what is inherited class? Yes or no? Quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in protected, they can be accessed by the inherited class. Okay. So these are the major difference between your access specifier, that is your public, private, and protected. In public, everyone can access. In private, only from inside the class. No one from outside can access. And in protected, inherited classes can access. Done? So this is with respect to access specifiers. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. We'll move up with the examples in 3 p.m. session. So I think you are aware of this. We have a session again at 3 o'clock. And with respect to what all theory we did with respect to classes, objects, and methods, we'll move with the example at 3 p.m. class. If you have any doubt, you can ask me and you can make a note of this access specifier. I think you
No
didn't.
doubts, ma'am.
What? Make a note of this attributes and methods and this thing. I think you didn't take down this, right? So make a note of that. Done?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or either you can make a note of them and ask me in the 3 p.m. session, and we'll take things forward in 3 p.m. session. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shita ma'am, for the session.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. We'll continue at 3 p.m., ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. I think even my screen is visible, right? Okay. So we were talking about methods. So basically, while going through methods also, so I have taken what firstly I have declared my class because methods are the functions that belong to a class. So without class I can't do anything. So firstly I have declared my class, and later I'm calling up my method, and let me type something over here. So classes. So at the end, I want this to be displayed. Okay. So next what happens, this is the main declaration. Again, I should go with the next declaration. So what happens here is, again, I'll be having int name, and now I should call the method. So firstly, before calling anything, just remember one thing. So here I was having, what was my class here? So my class was car. So I was calling up car, and later I was calling whatever the objects within the car. So firstly, the main thing is I want to declare this car. So in the same way, even in calling the object, firstly I should declare my class. So everything what we are studying here is a part of the class. So they belong to class. Either it may be the objects or the methods what we call upon, they belong to the class. So before calling up the objects or the methods, we need to call up in which class we are doing this. So here it is my class, right? Okay. So in my class, what am I having? So firstly, before going to what? My method, I got to implement the object within the main axis, and later I'm supposed to call a method. So before calling a method, I need to create an object of my class, and later I should call the method. Okay. So while calling the object directly, I don't have any obligation with it. I'll just create a class of car, and I'll have the attributes for it, and directly I'll be calling the object. That is very simple one to go with. But while calling the method, you should remember that firstly, we should create the object of my class, and later within the object of my class, I got to call the methods. So let's see how it is done. So I can call it as, I want an object, right? So I can call it as my object, and later with this my object, I need to call my method. Okay, and later I'll be having written 0. Okay, understood this much? Try running this program. My compiler is running slow. So firstly, I have my class wherein I declared the my method. But before calling my method, I need to create a my object within which my method will be run. Okay, quickly run this program, people. Done. It's a very simple one to go, but you should remember what's the difference while calling my method and my object. In my object, you can do it directly, but in method, you need to create an object, and later you got to go with the method. Okay. So here we are having two types, as I was already telling you. Oh, yeah, I mentioned you here already. So in method, I have two types. So one is the inside class and another one is the outside class. Okay. So whatever we did in the first example is the example for inside class. So where is this inside class happening is, so it is here. I have my class over here and inside this class, so here what am I doing? I have a class and within the class I'm declaring my method. So this is known as method is defined inside the class. So what happens if I have to declare it outside the class? So what happens is very simple, wherein we change only the, I'll comment out this also. Okay. So this is method defined inside the class. So if I have to go with outside the class, firstly what I do, I should remove these brackets. I should close this. And obviously when it is outside the class, I need to move out of the class which is there. Okay. So here I'll be having another syntax which is given by void. So what is my class name? My class. My class. Right. What do I want to call? My method. And what was my output? It was this. Okay. So here I'm trying to print the output outside the class and not inside the class. And the difference here is I have a little changes with respect to syntax, and that is this. My class, you'll have double colon and you'll call the my method and you want to, and you'll state the statement wherein you want whatever you want to print. And apart from that, my main program will be the same. There will be no changes with respect to the main program. I'll create a my object in order to run the my method, and within my object, I'll be having my method called. That's it. That's the difference between your inside and outside the function, outside of the class. So here the method is outside the class. Both the forms are correct, and you need not to worry about that. So both are correct in each and every sense. So either you can use this syntax or you can use this syntax. But when compared to the outside method, your insider method, if you remember, I had explained in the previous class the difference between the insider and the outsider. So when compared to inline and outline function, I have explained that. So when compared to outside, inline is better. Why? Because the efficiency of running a program and the speed of the program will be more in inline than that of the outsider function. That is the main thing. Okay, so let me give another example and try to sort it out with some example. So we were talking about car, right? So let me take an example of car. Okay, and we have a public specifier, access specifier, that is public, which you are using, and I want in, that is speed. So let me take the speed as the maximum speed what I can take. Let me, I don't want this now. Okay, I'll be using the outsider function. So what is the class name? So here I declared it as my class, but what is my class name? My class name is car. Right. And what is the, sorry, SCEE. And what is the method I'm calling over here? It is nothing but speed. So there I had called it as my method, but here it is speed. Okay. So it is speed. And what am I calling over here? In max speed. So basically, when I get in, I want to return a particular value. See here, what am I supposed to return? I am supposed to return the maximum speed. So I'll be calling as return max speed. So clear with the first half, that is the main declaration part. So firstly, I want to declare a class which is car over here, and secondly, I want to call up a method. Okay, and the parameters within the method are the maximum speed. So these are called the, and these are called the parameters. And nextly, in order to print the function, what am I doing? So I want void car where I'm taking the speed, and I want to return the maximum speed. So that is the first part, it is done. And later what I want to do, so my class, and I want to create an object. So what is my class over here? It is car, right? So I want to create a my object. So my object can be my object itself because I don't have any other specific object over here. And later, what am I supposed to do? I am supposed to call the method function, right? So now I have to call this method. So method here is the speed in order to print the output. So what am I doing over here? I directly go with cout, and so how am I supposed to declare my method? So firstly, I should take my object, and later I should declare my method. So my object, but what is my method over here? My method is the speed, right? So speed is my method. So what I do, I go with speed. And I have to pass the parameter. Let me take an example. My speed is somewhere around 140 kilometer per hour. That's it. And we are returning 0. And here what is happening, in this part, you are calling the method with an argument parameter. Understood? So it is as simple as that of calling the function, but you need to take care of few objects, that is few things, that is you have to declare a class, you have to declare an object, and later you have to call the method. But in function it is not that complex, it is pretty simple and you need not to worry about all those stuffs. You just got to declare a function and call a function. Is this clear? Any doubts in this method? Please try out this program and make a note of this program. Quickly. Quickly make a note down of it. Make a note of it. So any doubts still here? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you make a note of this program? Did you understand what's the difference between calling a function and calling a method? Hoping that you finished it. Let's move to the next topic. So the next topic is known as constructors. Okay. So the next topic is constructors. So what is this constructors? Firstly, remember constructor is a special type of method. Okay. So you need to know the difference how these things are working. So firstly, it was a function wherein you were just calling a function, and later what happened? You're creating a class for the function, and after class you're creating an object for the function, and after object you're creating the method for the function, and later now here we are in constructor, wherein constructor is a special type of a method. Okay, it is like for example, if you have dairy milk as a main brand, then dairy milk, whatever you get, that roasted almond or that thing, so that would be a construct where it is a special type of a method. So let's see what's the difference between all these things. So I'm telling, so it's a special type of the method. What's the difference between how you call a method and how you call a constructor, or what's the minor changes in this? So it is very common that you create a class. So let me take an example as my class. Okay, so this is the first thing. So obviously now you should be used to it. So once after I get the class, I should have the attributes, access specifiers. So my access specifier is my public. So next what happens is I'm calling my class and I'm trying to pass some parameter within it. I don't know what. Right now let it be a blank. You can see it later. And I'm printing some CO. I'm printing from CO. So observe here, I'll also show you this example. So just see over here. I'm having class, which is car, and I'm having public, and I'm having the different string, that is brand, model, and year. That's what I'm having here. That's it. I don't have anything. Later, when you come here, so there's some light changes over here. So my class, that is fine. Public, that is fine. Here, I'm trying to again put up my class and pass certain parameter inside this class. So my class followed by this parenthesis and parameter is nothing but the constructor. So I'm trying to pass something over there. So what is that? We'll see to it in the example. But know the difference between both the functions, wherein here what are you doing? You're just creating a class within which you have different attributes to be taken care of, and later here what is happening, you're creating a class, you have an access specifier, but you're calling certain parameters or declaring certain parameter inside this class and taking out the output. Understood this much? Let's move for the example. So let me take an example of car again. And my access specifier would be public. And again, let me copy paste this. So I have brand, I have year, and I have this. So what did I do over here? I again called my class and passed certain parameters, right? So what I will be doing here, so what I have is car. So my class is car. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to pass some value within it. So let it be string x, string y. Because why am I taking string? Because brand would be a string, model would be a string, and what would be the year? Year would be an integer. Okay, so x, y, and let this be z. This much is clear? Clear, right? So next what happens is, here, now I have to pass the value of each and everything. So what is x, what is y, and what is z? So what is x? The brand is x. So what is y? The model is y. So what is z? The year is z. Make sense? And I will be closing this bracket, and again I will be closing this bracket. I think I have extra braces over here. Oh, yeah, for the last one. Yes. So here, what am I doing? I'm taking the class car and I'm trying to pass certain parameter in within this class car. And next, I'm trying to define what it is. So what it is, I'm putting this string x value to brand, string y value to model, and the integer z value to year. Simple, right? So until this, it is clear. And later, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to take the main function. So next, what am I supposed to do? So when it comes to the class, it is very evident that you need to what? Create an object. So when you create a class, you need to create an object. And when you want to write a method also, you need to create an object. Or when you want to pass the constructor also, you need to create an object. So class and objects goes hand in hand. Once you declare the class, then you need to create an object. That's it. So I have objects over here. Let me copy paste that. Where is my objects? Yes. So, and later, I have print statements also here ready. I could put that. Okay. So this is how you run your program. Understood? So creating an object and output would be a same thing. There is no difference in that. But the only difference here is you are going to create a certain objects wherein you are trying to push the values into that. That's it. Using the constructor with the declared or known parameter, you'll push the value of string x to brand and string y to model and string z to this thing. And here, one more thing what you can do is, instead of writing all these stuffs, you can do one thing. So as we have already declared string, you can cut short it and write it as. So the first one was the string, right? So you have BMW. And later, what was the model we chose? It was somewhere X5. And what was the year? It was somewhere 1000. So 32,000. In the same way, in this, I can just make as Ford. I had Ford EcoSport, and the model was 2016. So this is the advantage with respect to string, wherein you need not to evidently describe each and everything, because you have already passed a constructor wherein you have assigned the value of x, y, z, which are moving to the respective things. In the same way, That constructor will be having the xyz values over here in the form of the constructor, wherein it will be moved to the respective object. So you need not to declare a long declaration like what we were using here, where that is creating the object for each and everything and having the value. Instead of that, what we do is we just put up a constructor and we pass the values directly. So this is about constructors. Any doubt in it? This makes our job easy. That's it. Nothing like, what can I say? Nothing special about it. It makes the code simpler and also easy for us to access the code. Please make a note of this. It down. We'll move to the next. Shall I scroll down? Please let me know. Just let me know once you're done. Okay. So let's move to the next topic. So our next topic is encapsulation. So let's not get deeper into stuffs like what is it before getting deeper into stuffs. So I've been telling you since the day one. The first thing is whatever you tell in your mouth or whatever you describe, just put it in a syntactical form and that becomes the code. Coding is that simple. And before defining anything, like it may be object methods, or I've been asking you one question. So, what do you mean by this particular word in general English? So, that is what it means. That's the reason I ask you every time what is the meaning of the particular word in general English? Why? Because it is the name is given accordingly and it functions accordingly. So let's see what is encapsulation. So in general English terms, encapsulation means, for example, let me take an example of groundnut. ಕಡ್ಲೆಕಾಯಿ ಬೀಜ ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ವಾ? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಿಪ್ಪೆ ಸೀಳಿರೋದಲ್ಲ, ಕಡ್ಲೆಕಾಯಿ ಬೀಜ ಬಿಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಿಂತೀರಲ್ಲ ಅದು. So what happens there? The seeds are inside and we have a shell outside. So I can say there the seeds are encapsulated within the shell. ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮುಚ್ಚಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. Okay. So here in the same way, what are we trying to do here is encapsulate the data. So we are trying to protect the data. So if there wasn't the shell outside, they never knew what would happen to the seeds inside the groundnut. So in the same way, we are having particular data and we are trying to protect the data by using the method of encapsulation, because as I already told you, there will be different hierarchy of people and different set of data, wherein we don't want each and every data to be accessed by each and every person. So certain data need to be accessed by certain people. So what am I doing here? I'm encapsulating the data so that I'm protecting the data from getting access to everyone. So we learned something called access specifier in the previous class, and I had an access specifier known as private, right? So what was private? It cannot be accessed outside the class. So it cannot be accessed outside the class. This what do I mean by private? So you can ask me here, ma'am, we have public wherein it is given to each and everyone, and we have private wherein we are restricting the access to the people. That is, we are not giving access to outside the class. Then what is the need of using this getter and setter method? Right? So I'm having private wherein I can give the access. I'm having public where I can give the access to everyone, and have private wherein I can give the access to access where access is not getting outside the class. But here what is happening, I want to access to particular people or particular thing. So there is one more concept wherein this is done by this getter and setter method, or you can also call it as get setter. Okay, so in order to give the access to each and every individual or specified people, what I do here is I go with the getter and setter method, or the it is also called get set method or getter setter method. Getter setter method, both is also correct. So what is this get and set? So firstly, what do you mean by set? So you're giving a specified value to something, right? You're setting. So for example, you're setting an alarm. You're setting an alarm at 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. So what are you doing? You're defining at what time the alarm need to be set. So you're setting a specified value. And later, what is get? So get is nothing but fetching, right? So firstly, you should set the data in order to give a specified value, and later you can fetch the data. Fetching of the data. Okay. So encapsulation is mainly dealing with get set methods, wherein you'll be setting the data first and later you'll be fetching the data. Okay. Is this much clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So why this encapsulation is needed was another question. So why encapsulation needed is it will be having better control over the data than that of the private access specifiers. Right. So it also, I'll write it here only. It also increases the security when compared to that of the private. So this is the reason why we'll be having this encapsulation and data method. Quickly make a note of this. We'll go off with examples.
Done, ma'am.
Okay, let's move with the example. So firstly, as we are moving with the class, we need to declare a class. Let me take employee. So immediately, what am I supposed to do? I want the access specifier, which is public. That is done. And later, so I'll be giving an attribute that is salary. Okay, this is done. So now I told you I want first thing I want to set, and second thing I want to get. So again I need to specify the access specifiers, and I'll be giving it as public. The first thing what I need to do is so void set. What do I want to set? Salary. It is small what I have used there. So set salary. So what is the type of the thing? It is integer, and I'll be declaring salary as yes. So here I want salary is equal to here with this. So firstly I want to set. So I have an assignment for you tomorrow. So first in the previous class I told you people to look into what is long it, short float, all those stuff. And here I told you it's private. First thing, right? So here it's private, but I'm telling here I'm using public. For salary also I'm using public. For getter setter also I'm using public. So why do I use this public in getter and setter method? I want the answer for our tomorrow classes. And what are those long float, long double and shorted? These two are your assignments for tomorrow. So first what am I doing? I'm setting the data. So I'm setting it to an integer which is called as and has salary. I'm assigning this S value to the salary. And next, what am I supposed to do? Getter. Right. So I have to fetch the value. No? So I have void get salary. Okay. So get salary. So while getting the salary, I need not to pass any parameters because I want the data here. I'm not giving any data here. I'm fetching the data. So I need not to pass any parameter and this remains empty. Understood? So why that is empty? Because in get, I'm just trying to fetch the data which is already set. I don't want to pass any data again. So just for fetching purpose, I'm using this. So I don't want to go with any parameters over here. And what do I want? I want the value of the salary. So written salary. So what is wrong with my getter method? Quick thing. There's something wrong with respect to my getter method. I won't get the output over here. So what is that? Oh. So I've been telling you. So one thing is returnable and another thing is not returnable. When you have void, you cannot return the value. So here I'm having void. Can I return the value over here? No, I don't get the return value. So if I want to return the value in that case, I need to convert it into an integer. Okay. So firstly, I had a class. I had int that is salary which I wanted. Firstly, I set the salary to a particular value and next I'm fetching the data. So this is my main function. So next coming to my int. So what happens here? As it is class, by default, what am I supposed to call? Object. So what is my class name? It is employee. What is my object? Let me call it as my object. Okay. So next, what am I supposed to do? Through my object, I'm supposed to set the data and get the data. So my object, what is the syntax? Set salary. So pass the value which is a salary. Maybe let me take this 20,000. Next, after setting the salary, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to get the salary. In order to get the salary or print the salary, I need C out and I need my object dot. What is this syntax? Get salary. And what am I supposed to write? C. And close the brackets. So this is with respect to my second function, wherein I declare an object, I set the value, I pass the value, and I get the value. So this is your getter and setter method. Any doubts in it? Let me explain to you once again. So in why encapsulation? So encapsulation of data is used to protect the data where it is considered to be better than private where it cannot be accessed outside. So in order to encapsulate the data, we use two methods, that is get and set or getter and setter method. So in encapsulation, why we do this is because we have better control and increase of the security. So firstly, with respect, we want a class by default and an access specifier. Here I'm taking something called salary. So in order to set the data, I'll be using void set salary and pass the parameter which I want to declare. So salary, I'm passing it to S, which is an integer, obviously. Next, while getting the value, it is a written value, so I can't use word over here. I'll be using get salary and written value. And next, I want an object to be passed because I have a class. So I'll create my object. Through my object and set salary, I'll pass the integer value. So this is nothing but your S value over here. So integer S, that is your 20,000. And later, in order to fetch the data, I'm passing my objects or dot get data and printing it out where I get the output. Understood? Any doubts in this? Getter, setter, and encapsulation?
No, ma'am.
Okay, can you please make a note of all these things? Did you take down this? Shall I scroll?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to take down that? Okay. Make note of the program. Quickly.
Scroll, ma'am.
Yes. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any doubts in today's topic? So please go through what all we have done from morning and what all we study in the next class will be a continuation of the topics what we did. So go through it and if you have any doubts, let me know tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And tomorrow, the same class, 11 o'clock, we'll have the class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Harshita ma'am. Thank you for
Yeah,
the
that's okay,
session.
ma'am.
Okay, so tomorrow
Okay.
11 o'clock, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.